I just wish that were true. Welcome, everyone. My name is Emily Stamets, and I am a storyteller. Thank you so much for being here for this final performance, this time, of The Crystal Kingdom. This story has been kind of tapping me on the shoulder for years and years and years now, since before I actually started storytelling again. And so I'm very, very excited to have had a place and a reason to develop it and to bring it to life and to bring it here. So thank you to the San Diego International Fringe Festival for being a place where these sorts of things can come to light. And thank you to all of you for being here and being a soft place for it to land. Now, there are some trigger warnings here. This story does include depictions, verbal depictions of blood, ritualized violence, emotional manipulation, and some other really fun things. So please be careful as you listen and imagine today. And if you do need to leave, just use any of those exits that we pointed to. Also, thank you to Alejandro. I don't know where he went, but he has been doing a fantastic job of running tech and making me feel just completely safe and at home here. So thanks, Alejandro, wherever you are. This is the Crystal Kingdom. Amber sunset. Hold on. Amber sunset. 2 mountains of black stone rise from the valley floor. At the top of each, a palace, and between them, a bridge that connects them and floats high above a gorge that is so narrow and so deep that the sun only reaches the bottom a few minutes every day. Now, out of the gorge runs a river. The river's going to run right here. Sorry, Julie and Kirsten, we're going to split you up there. So the river runs right through here, and it goes all the way to the sanctum, weeks down the river. At the bottom of the Black Mountains, streets wind, homes, shops, markets. It's a kingdom, the Crystal Kingdom. Welcome. Now, the sun is setting, and as night falls, we hear music. And we, standing outside all of these homes, we can hear that each song is unique, but they weave together in an evening harmony that takes every shitty thing that happened to you today and holds it. And now, in one of these tidy homes, little Anya is getting ready for bed. She's tying her long black hair back into a braid. And her Appa, who's tall and willowy, Appa is humming one of those evening songs. And Daddy is over here. Daddy's the opposite of tall and willowy, sort of round and red-cheeked, and he's tapping his toe. Now, Daddy is also a singer like Appa, but Daddy is married. He wears the red crystal collar of a married singer. And in the Crystal Kingdom, when you get married, you vow never to perform for anyone except your spouse ever again. It's pretty romantic, right? So Daddy's not singing along. Daddy was married to Anya's mommy, but mommy died a few years ago, so now Daddy doesn't have anyone to sing for, even though he has a new partner, Appa. Now tonight, as he taps his toe, Daddy is rubbing a salve into the neck, into the skin of his neck around that red collar. He never takes it off. And so sometimes that skin gets a little irritated. Anya comes over and gives him a kiss and says, "Good night, Daddy." And Daddy says, and Anya says, "I love, love, love you too, Daddy." And she turns to Appa and says, "Appa, tell me a story." And Appa says, "Excuse me? Just last night, someone was saying that bedtime stories are for babies." And Anya said, "Ugh, Appa, but tomorrow is a choosing day, so it's not just like a story, it's history." And Appa said, "Oh, so we're rebranding bedtime, is it? All right, settle in." And Anya settled in next to her Appa. And Appa began. "Long, long ago, our 2 mountains were one mountain, until a river cut through the heart of them and exposed the caves deep inside. On one side of the river lived the dancers, and they were so graceful that even them walking to market was more beautiful than any ballet found to the east or west. And on the other side of the river lived the singers, and their voices were so melodic that even hearing them order a sandwich at the deli was greater than the greatest choirs found to the north or south. And between them, the caves, filled with crystals of every color, white, rose, purple, and of course, the special black crystals found nowhere else on earth that made these kingdoms so rich and dangerous. Because you see, they were always at war for control of these caves. And the wars were vicious. Blood ran down the river, red all the way to the sanctum. And every war ended the same. No food, no crystals, no crowns left to trade. The wars did not end because they were over. They ended because no one could afford them. Now, finally, after generations of this, there was a scribe in the sanctum who was wise enough to break this generational cycle. And that scribe walked weeks and weeks and weeks up the river with his shaved head getting sunburned and his white robes turning brown at the bottom. And he got here and he climbed up one mountain, and then he climbed up the other mountain, and he met with the queen of the singers and the king of the dancers. And they agreed. They set a date, and by midnight on that day, they would agree to a peace treaty, or they would engage in one final war that would destroy one kingdom or both. The queen in her palace built half a bridge of stone, and the king in his palace built half a bridge of steel, and they met together to make one bridge that floated high above the chasm and the kingdom below like a wish. The day arrived, and the queen left her advisors behind and stepped out onto that stone bridge. And the king left his viziers behind, and he stepped out onto the steel bridge. And they met in the middle. The queen's leather boots warm against cold stone. The king's velvet dancing slippers soft on steel. And the scribe stood between them, 1 foot on stone, 1 on steel, his white robes blowing in the wind. Now, far below, the people of their kingdoms were getting ready for war. But on this day, they stopped their preparations. And they watched. In the morning chill, they watched. And in the afternoon heat, they watched. And as night fell and the stars twinkled into the sky, they wrapped themselves in blankets and they watched. And finally, the midnight clock began to toll. Dong, dong, dong. People began to hang their heads and cry. There would be no peace. Just one final war. But the clock continued to toll. Dong, dong. And a gasp rose up from both sides of the river. Rainbows, crystalline rainbows, had lit up the sky, and in their light, they could see the hand of the king and the hand of the queen reaching toward each other and clasping right where stone met steel. A great cheer rose up. There would be peace. They feasted for 6 days and 6 nights. And the queen and king married to join their kingdoms into one, the Crystal Kingdom. Now, on that bridge, the queen had fallen so deeply in love with the king that she vowed never to sing for anyone but him ever again. And after that day, no one heard her even whisper a word. And on that bridge, the king had fallen so deeply in love with the queen that he vowed never to dance for anyone but her ever again. And no one saw him even stand on his own 2 feet after that day. As symbols of their devotion, the queen had crafted a red crystal collar, and the king red crystal shoes that they wore and never took off to their dying day. Such was their love. And there has not been a war in the Crystal Kingdom since that day. This is when Anya gets excited. This is her favorite part of the story. So Appa says, Now, the monarchs together ruled wisely and well, but they did not have children. No monarchs came after. This is why we call them the first and last monarchs. Appa said, very good. And they gave their greatest gifts to one another. This is why everyone who falls so deeply in love, they get married, and they promise never to perform for anyone but their spouse, and they wear red crystal shoes and a red crystal collar. What's next? And Appa said, very good again. Now, the sanctum and the scribes were so wise on that day. This is why we trust the sanctum to run the crystal caves and to make big decisions for the kingdom. Very good, last one, here we go. Our kingdom was once two kingdoms, one of dancers and one of singers, but now we are one, united. This is why everyone in the Crystal Kingdom has such complete freedom to choose if they are a singer or a dancer. And Appa said, very good, and together they said, that is why. But Anya, being older than she had ever been before, thought a thought that she had never thought before. Appa, what happens if someone doesn't want to choose? Like, I like singing and dancing. So, what if I want to do both? And Appa laughed their deep musical laugh and said, well, then you will need twice as many hours in the day as the rest of us. Now, you know, tradition dictates you must choose one or the other and leave the other one behind. You could give up both and become a scribe. And Ani said, oh, no, I don't want to shave my head. And Appa kissed her on the forehead, turned out the light. And in the darkness, Anya asked, but who would stop me? Now, the next day was a choosing. The choosing has deep ancestral roots that the people of the Crystal Kingdom do not remember. There's barely even records of it in the sanctum, but it's my story. I know what it's from. Here's how it used to go. This is way back before there was a sanctum, before there were palaces, before there was a bridge. What used to happen is people on both sides of the river would come together on the 2 days a year when the sun shone for the longest amount of time in this gorge on those crystals, right? The crystals glitter awake when the sun shines down there. And they would come and they would gather, and they would have a big feast. They would lay out picnic blankets, colorful picnic blankets. There was food. And then as the sun got higher and higher in the sky, they began to gather into formation. So on this side of the river, we would face this way, yes, and on this side of the river, we would face this way. And right when the sun lit up the first of those crystals, the people on this side of the river would begin a dance, slow. It's a dance that they all grew up learning. Everybody knew it. They practiced all year long. And on this side of the river, these folks would begin to hum and clap. And they went together, yes. Now, they would get to the end of the dance and get to the end of the song, and then they would do it again, but faster, yeah? Yes, dancing and humming faster. And as the sun got higher, so it goes this way, higher and higher, and the crystals got brighter and brighter, they would get faster and faster and faster, and if you couldn't keep up, you had to get out. And the goal was to stay in it until the last drop of sun left those crystals dark. And they ended up a sweaty mess, and in the entire history of the gatherings, nobody ever made it. Making it was the goal, but it was not the point. After that, they would take any of their leftover picnic treats, and they would wrap them up in bundles, and they would heave them across the river to each other, and they would trade treats. Then they would all sit down, and they had saved up all of their big ceremonious occasions for these 2 days a year. So baby namings and apprentices graduating into journey people, memorial services all happened on this day. So these folks would sit down, so you're gonna be these folks, and these folks would sit down and they would begin. But what happened, and there might have been beer involved, was this. If I was like, this is my new baby and I'm gonna name him Gio, and over here would be like, yay, Gio. Yay. And over here, you would hear that cheer. And even if we were having a very solemn memorial service, you would also Cheer. Yes, yes. And then over here, we'd be like, and so we're so grateful that we had Deborah in our lives for the short amount of time that we did. And we'd all go, yay, Deborah. Yay, Deborah. And then over here, we'd go, yay, Deborah. Yeah, and it took fucking forever because everyone kept interrupting each other, right? So they were there all day, all night. And they did this twice a year like clockwork. Unless their leaders had sent them to war with each other. Now, the event that Anya walks into is no longer called a gathering. It's now called a choosing. It looks a little bit different, but kind of the same. Now, we're one kingdom, right? I'm going to turn our geography. So our river was this way. We're going to go this way. Mountains, river, sanctum. Yeah, great. So now the river is here, but we're one kingdom. So they took huge boards and they laid them out across the river to make a giant open dance floor with the river running underneath it. They picnicked, colorful picnic blankets, yes, food. Anytime more than like 3 people were together, they would start singing and dancing. It was like living in like Hello Dolly a little bit. Sounds great. And the kids would play this game. So Anya spent the morning with her best friend and neighbor, Jabari. And they hung out with all the group of kids kind of in their own age range, right? And they play this game that nobody knows where it come from. Nobody knows where it came from. No one knows why they play it. We know. And here's how it went. We make 2 lines, and each kid would have a chunk of food of some sort. And the kids on this side would throw their food to the other kids and they would catch it. And if I catch my food, I would take a step back. And then I would toss it back to my partner. Yes, we go back and forth until we could get as far away as we could. The only prize was to get as messy as possible. So this was all going on. It was going great until Ellen, who was in Anya and Jabari's class, decided that she was going to play with a giant bowl of potato salad. And she went to toss it to her partner, and instead of tossing it across the way to her partner, she tossed it straight onto herself, covered in mayonnaise, potato chunks in her hair, the whole bit. Now the scribe, there's always a scribe in the Crystal Kingdom. The scribe was across the party, and the scribe heard that squelch of the potato salad, and immediately, like a hound on the scent, and she stormed over. No, she did not. Our scribe does not storm. Our scribe walks calmly, purposefully, importantly. Walked over to the children, leaned down, made a face that was a cousin of a smile, but not a smile at all, and said, "This is a sacred occasion. Do I need to get the box?" Okay, now, exposition. The box. Okay, so these black crystals that grow in the gorge, nowhere else in the world. The reason that they're special, you know, most crystals, they like take light, they look sort of shimmery, and they sort of refract light, they make all these pretty. The black crystals absorb all of the light and sound from around them, which makes them a little creepy, but makes them very, very good for keeping records of historical events, which is why the sanctum needs them to do their work, to keep their records. They also, so the sanctum is also the sort of the keepers of law and order in the kingdom. And the worst punishment they could imagine was the box. So it's a box made out of that black crystal. It's the size of a coffin. So if you're inside it, you can't move. And even if you sing, you could not hear your own voice, which is terrible, terrible for anybody. But for someone who was raised dancing and singing in the Crystal Kingdom, nightmare-inducing. So the scribe is leaned down to the kids and said, "Do I need to get the box?" And the kids go, and they're a lot more quiet after that. Now the sun is rising overhead, and it's getting close to the point where it's going to hit these, remember the crystals over here now, it's going to hit the crystals. And so folks start to gather in the center in that big dance floor they've got. Now it's all mixed up. Dancers and singers are all mixed together in this big dance floor. Around the outside are the folks who can't sing or dance. So we've got the folks who have not chosen yet. So if you're not old enough yet, or you just haven't gone through that ceremony yet. And then anyone who's married. because they can't sing or dance for anyone except their spouse. So we've got sort of younger people around the outside and married people who have those red crystal collars and red crystal shoes. And when the sun hits that first crystal in the gorge, they begin to dance and to hum and clap. So they're dancing this dance that nobody really knows why they dance this dance and sing this song. And they're all pivoting together around a center point in a giant circle. And when they get to where they started, they all take a step inward, they get closer together, and they do it again, faster, dancing and humming. And then they do it again, faster and faster, and closer together, until they are dancing and moving so close that they can only go like this. So we've got the humming and the clapping is turned into stomping and like, what is this, thigh clapping? Great, like this, all in a big, big sweaty circle. And they do this until the last drop of sun has left those crystals dark. And they all make it because they're holding each other up. So they do that. The folks inside are laughing. They're sweaty, dripping with sweat. Give me a second. They're dripping with sweat. They're laughing. Around the outside, all of the unchosen, the younger folks, are laughing and smiling. All the married people have tears streaming down their face. It's very emotional. And from across all of that, we hear, "Let the choosing begin." Now, the scribe is standing on a little bridge. I forgot to tell you about the bridge. There's a bridge, a little tiny bridge, just right over the river, past the dance floor a little bit, over there. And the scribe is standing there on the bridge, river running underneath her feet. "Let the choosing begin." And all of the laughing and everything quiets down, and people gather, and they sit in front of the bridge. And the scribe says, "Your kingdoms were once two, divided, fraught. Your monarchs in their wisdom united your kingdom, and with that unity brought peace and freedom." And then she reached into her pocket and she pulled out one of those black crystals, and it sucked the light and sound around it. She gave it a tap. Now, most crystals, when you tap them, they'll go ting. Yeah. This one went whoom, whoom, whoom. "Some among you will choose today. Your choices will be recorded by the sanctum, and they may not be undone. Begin." And it was quiet. Until Ellen, potato salad girl, popped up and said, "I'm Ellen." She saw a little chunk of potato in her hair. "I'm Ellen, and I am a singer." And Jabari, Anya's best friend, said, "Yeah, obviously she is. She's such a klutz." And Anya said, "Stop it, Ellen's really nice." And one by one, young folks stood up. "I'm a singer. I'm a dancer." And they went on like this. The youngest was about 6, and the oldest was kind of approaching their 20s. People, you get to choose when you choose. And then the last person popped up, and we waited to make sure that no one else was going to volunteer. It's called wait time for my teachers out there. Which was a minute of wait time. And then the scribe said, "That concludes this choosing." And she pulled out a piece of black velvet. She wrapped up that crystal and walked off the bridge and away. The party got a little bit louder. People gathered together around all those new dancers and singers. "Congratulations, welcome, I'm so excited." But Anya tugged on Daddy's hand, and Daddy knelt down. Now, Daddy can't speak to Anya with his voice, but he speaks with his hands and his face and his heart. He kneels down to be eye level with her, and she says, "Daddy, Ellen's a really bad dancer." And Daddy said, and Anya said, "No, it's okay, everybody knows it. She knows it. She's the one who laughs the hardest when she messes up. But that's the thing. She's always so happy in dance class. But now she's a singer." And Daddy said, "That means that she can't come to dance class anymore, huh?" And Daddy said, "But Daddy, that doesn't seem fair. Why can't she be a singer but still come to dance class sometimes?" And Daddy thought about that and said, ugh, I know that strength in one is skill, whatever. Dad, no, that's not the point. The point is that she should still be able to be happy. And what about someone like Ronan? Ronan has never said a single word in his whole life yet. So does he even have a choice? And Daddy thought about that. And then he pulled Anya into a hug, which is what parents do when they do not have the answer. The party continued. There was going to be a wedding that night. Now, weddings are pretty rare in the Crystal Kingdom. It's a big, you have to give up a lot to marry the person you love. You have to make that big promise. So there's a wedding tent set up over here. And as it gets darker and darker, the tent glows brighter and brighter. And throughout the afternoon, married folks clump together in bigger and bigger clumps, and they glance toward that wedding tent, and their red crystal glints in the afternoon light. And finally, night falls, and it's time to say goodnight. Daddy is going to go to the wedding, but everyone else has to go home. Only married people are allowed in the wedding tent. So Daddy says goodnight to Anya. He says, and Anya says, I love, love, love you too, Daddy. And then Daddy takes a deep breath, and he takes the handles of the wheelchair of his friend who's wearing red crystal shoes, and he wheels her, and together they go into the wedding tent. And Appa says, come along, Anya, and we have to go home now. And Ani says, but can't we stay and look at the stars? They're so pretty tonight. And Appa says, no, we cannot. The wedding is about to start, and we have to be far enough away that we can't hear the sacred ceremony that happens inside. And Ani says, but why? And Appa says, tradition. Come along. And they go home. The next day, Anya and Jabari are walking home together, as they usually do. They're next door neighbors. And Anya is on fire. But what if I want to sing and dance? And poor Ellen, why can't she just come to dance class sometimes? And what if I want her to dance with me on the day of my own wedding? And what about poor Ronan? He doesn't have a choice at all, and this whole thing is so stupid and unfair. And Jabari goes, I wish I had two of me. And Ani says, me too. I talked to Master Mahina about it. Okay, now Master Mahina, her scene got cut, but I want you to know about her. She's really cool. She was their dancing teacher until she got married just a little while ago. And she always used a wheelchair since she was born. She was born unable to move her legs. So she dances and she ties these feather-light silk scarves around her wrists and elbows. So when she dances, it's like watching a flock of starlings. And she still wears those scarves, even though no one sees her dance anymore except for her wife. Okay, so Anya says, I talked to Master Mahina about it, and she said, just like the mountain, we have to split ourselves in two to find the deepest beauty buried deep inside. And Jabari said, whoa, that sounds like Master Mahina. Anya, I have an idea. It's probably stupid. And Anya said, well, you have stupid ideas all the time. What's this one? Jabari said, okay. You know how when you're having trouble in math and I teach you, what if I became a dancer and I teach you? And then you could become a singer. And Ani said, that sounds super illegal. And Jabari said, I think you mean it sounds super genius. Genius and crimey? It's only illegal if someone finds out. And Anya thinks about it. Okay, but I get to be the dancer. And so it is decided. Time passes. Anya and Jabari get taller. Anya gets a little rounder like her daddy, and she keeps cutting she keeps growing her hair out long and cutting it short, growing it and cutting it. And Jabari has an afro, and he gets locks in it, and then his locks get longer and longer, and his shoulders get stronger and stronger until he looks a lot like Alvin Ailey. Montage. The day of their choosing, Anya stands, so they wait as long as they can to do their choosing. Anya stands, I am Anya, and I am a dancer. Jabari, I am Jabari, and I am a singer. Whoosh. There's a couple scenes of them meeting after school and teaching each other dance and singing, and they laugh a lot. Maybe there's some whipped cream involved, who knows. Okay, cool. Whoosh. Comes a day when Anya adjusts his arm position, And at her touch, his heart goes, and his body flushes hot. Whoosh! Jabari is showing her how to shape a specific vowel sound with her lips. She doesn't hear a word he says because his lips are just so lippy. Whoosh! They're not dancing or singing at all. They're looking at the clouds. And Anya points up at one. See this one? That one looks like an apple tree, right? And when her hand comes down, it lands right on top of his. And they don't talk or move at all for minutes except to turn their hands toward each other. Whoosh! Anya is showing him a close partnering technique, and when they finish this step, they stay there for a while, and they dance just with their fingers. Whoosh! Jabari is showing her how to find more space in her instrument. So he cups her jaw to help her kind of bring it forward a little bit. And he cups her jaw, and his thumb traces a soft line across her cheek. Whoosh. I'll give you some moments to fill in any other scenes that you might like to see there. I know what kind of books I read, so. We read a lot of the same books, Moms. We recommend a lot of books back and forth. Great. So, in the Crystal Kingdom, there's no ceremony involved in starting a household or starting a family. You just get a house and you move in, and maybe you throw a party if you like parties. So they do that. And one lazy morning, they're laying there. Anya's playing with one of his locks, and Jabari is memorizing the veins of emerald and brass in her eyes. We make the best music together. We do. If I could only dance with you for the rest of my life, that might be enough. If I only sang with you every minute of the rest of my life, it wouldn't be enough minutes. Marry me. Only if you marry me back. Marriage is a big deal. It is. My uncle cried for 3 days after his wedding. What? Why? Like out of joy? I don't know. He never said. He just said I would get it when I was older. Are you sure? Yes. Are you? Yes. And so it was decided. Anya told her daddy that she was going to marry Jabari. And daddy said, "What? But daddy, why? But daddy, I love him. I feel like my soul is torn apart when I'm not with him, and he feels the same way. That's why people get married." Daddy, I know you love to watch me dance, but this isn't about you. This is about me and Jabari and our future. If you really love me, you'll support me in this, even if you don't like it. Daddy, I will dance for Jabari, for my spouse. This is not your choice to make, Dad. Yes! Yes! Yes. And Daddy spent the rest of the day in his darkened bedroom. Now, the next time there was a choosing, there would also be a wedding. So we laid out the big boards across the river to make that big dance space. The wedding tent is set up. There's the bridge. There's our mountains and the crystals. Picnic, yes. We dance the spiral until we're close here and until the last drop of sun leaves those crystals dark. Night falls, the tent glows brighter. And Anya and Jabari say goodnight to all of their unmarried friends and family. They are the only unmarried people allowed in the tent, except for the scribe. Appa pulls Anya aside and they give her a gift. It's a delicate gold chain with a tiny teardrop crystal. It spins a little bit and catches the light from the wedding tent and shines like firelight. Your story is made up of happy tears and sad ones. They both count. They both matter. Thank you, Appa. I love you so much. And she takes Jabari's hand, and they go into the wedding tent. And then someone's phone rings. There's music playing. There's a wedding after all. So they go into the wedding tent, and the wedding tent is, the inside of it is draped with silks and embroidery in colors of sapphire and ruby and emeralds. Delicate gold lanterns float and cast like a soft, flickering lantern light everywhere. Shadows frolic in the corners. And at one end, there's a raised platform with 2 golden chairs like thrones. The rest of the space is filled with low cushions and low tables, and all of the married people of the kingdom, with their collars and their red shoes glinting in that firelight. And they're silent, still. Their goblets of mead and champagne weep condensation onto the tablecloths. Jabari says, "How long do you think it'll be before they bring us some snacks?" And Ani says, "Well, I don't know, it seems like we're the entree." Now, brocade tapestries have been laid down over the grass as a rug, and their feet shh, 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 as they walk. And they sit. The scribe enters from the back of the tent carrying a plain wooden box. Remember, she walks very calmly and purposefully and importantly. She sets that box down at their feet. Anya, Jabari, you're here tonight to undertake a wedding ritual, the same ritual completed by your first and last monarchs long, long ago. This ritual comprises 2 parts, a gift from the sanctum and a song or dance from each of you accordingly. You may not speak of or share knowledge of this ritual outside this tent. To do so would endanger the peace and prosperity of your kingdom. The punishment is a lifetime in the box. And she pulls out a black crystal. Anya, Jabari, do you vow to undertake and complete this wedding ritual and never to speak of it outside this tent? Yeah, I do. I mean, we do. Yeah. Yes. 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 Excellent. She sets that crystal down and opens the plain wooden box at their feet. Rainbows, crystalline rainbows spill out. Inside is a pair of crystal shoes and a crystal collar. And they shine in that lantern light. The crystal is of the highest quality. It's flawless. And it is clear. Well, surely this would be the stuff that they would do in the ceremony, and they would get their red ones later. It's fine. Now the scribe turns to the guests. On their wedding day, your first and last monarchs danced their last dance and sang their last song. Through their pain, they united your kingdom. Their bond was forged in blood. And so it shall be tonight. And all here will bear witness to a union forged in love, in pain, in blood. And Anya gripped the arms of her chair. This was not the story she knew. The monarchs in Appa's story married each other out of love and joyfully. They didn't bleed. They didn't suffer. Why were her shoes clear? Now the scribe stood back and said, "You have received your wedding gifts. Now, no, you have not. I will give you your wedding gifts right now." Great. the scribe was at Anya's feet. And she took one of those shoes and held it to the bottom of Anya's foot and grinned up at her. And then shoved the shoe onto Anya's foot. And Anya gasped. The inside of the shoe sliced into her foot. It was lined with crystal fins, sharp as broken glass. Anya tried to pull her foot away, but the scribe grabbed tighter and locked the ankle strap across her feet. Anya was breathing too fast, too hard, and the second shoe clicked on. Pain shot up her leg. She screamed, "Ah!" And she could not take her eyes off of them. The clear crystal shoes were filling with blood, turning red. Beside her, Jabari! The scribe had locked the crystal collar on his neck, and it was lined with needles. They pierced his skin, his throat, the sides of his neck. Anya looked around the room. What? Who could help them? And the scribe stood back and said, "Now you have received your wedding gifts. It is time to complete the ritual. Dance. Sing." But Anya knew that if she took even a single step with these knives locked on her foot, she would never walk again. And Jabari knew that if he whispered a word with these needles in his neck, he would never speak again. Anya looked around. Who could help them? Her math teacher, Master Mihina, the lady who sold beads in the market. They all knew. They had all known, and none of them had warned them. Anya found her father, and tears filled his eyes, but he did not look away. How could he do this to her? And Anya realized he had done nothing. It was one person who had locked these knives onto her foot, the scribe. And it had been a scribe, too, who had locked that collar around her father's throat and stolen his voice. Stolen all of their voices and their dance. Tink, 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 tink. Around the room, tink, tink. The sound of tears, tink, falling on crystal. Tink, tink. They had all gone through with it. And they had all kept the secret because they hadn't had a choice. But Anya and Jabari had choices. They could complete this ritual. Anya looked at Jabari and he looked back and his eyes were wide. She could see the whites around them, but he nodded. And Anya turned back to her wedding guests with those knives locked on her feet. She took a deep breath, and Anya began to sing. And beside her, Jabari began to move, that crystal collar sloshing around his neck, his arms tracing through the air. And below them, the scribe said, "What? Wait, what? No, stop. No, this is not how it works." And the butcher, who had arms like tree trunks and a red collar around his neck, stood up and grabbed the scribe by the shoulders and pushed her down to the ground. "What? No, this is betrayal. You'll get the box." And Master Mihina untied one of her silk scarves and shoved it in the scribe's mouth. And Anya sang. She sang heartbreak and hope. Every note of fracture that light poured through. And Jabari danced. His body etched the air, every step cracking the cold earth open, love rising through the wreckage. And Anya's daddy, with tears pouring down his face, he stood and began to move, his hands like injured birds, his feet tracing a childish copy of Jabari's. Across the room, a woman sitting in a chair with red crystal on her feet began to hum a note, and it clashed at first with Anya's until they found a place. And one by one, the seated dancers lifted their voices, and one by one, the silenced singers began to dance. And they danced, and they moved, and it was not beautiful. They were very out of practice. It was not good, but it didn't have to be. They sang the decades of stillness, and they danced the generations of silence, louder and louder and faster and faster. And they danced until sweat ran down their bodies, and they sang until their voices ran raspy, until finally, in one clear crescendo, it ended in a silence that they chose, in a stillness that was theirs. Exile for all of you, the box for all of you for And the tree trunk man, he lifted up the scribe and marched her out of the tent. Jabari scooped Anya up, and he scooped up that black crystal. And they all marched together, some of them in wheelchairs, some of them being carried by their partners, and some of them walking on their own 2 feet. They marched out of the tent, and they took the scribe all the way to the edge of the kingdom and threw her down in the black dust. She scrambled to her feet. You exile me. Try it. You'll never survive without the sanctum, without me. If we hadn't been there on that first day and every day after, this kingdom would be so much blood down the river. You've all eaten the lie that your kingdom was founded in true love. Ha. Your monarchs did not fall in love on that bridge. They loathed one another. They gouged to each other, taking. They despised you too. Why else would they force this ritual on their loyal subjects? This kingdom is poison, wrapped in silk. And Anya's father stepped forward, and his face was dry for the first time in the whole story. And he reached up, both hands to his collar, and he squeezed until it shattered. Crystal shards fell down in the black dust, mixing with old blood and new blood, and red blood ran down his neck where the needles had been, and he said, "You might be right, but we choose love." And the scribe spat on those crystals, turned, ran, and was never seen in the Crystal Kingdom ever again. Whew! Now, Jabari had that black crystal with him the whole time, yeah? And they shared that crystal with the world, inside the kingdom, outside the kingdom. And one by one, across the world, people cut off their trading relationships with the sanctum. So the Crystal Kingdom had to renegotiate all their trade relationships. They also had to reach out across the world for healers. Healers of bone and cartilage and tendon, and healers of the spirit too. So all these new folks are coming in. Anya and Jabari are among the first to heal, so they put themselves in charge of finding new homes for all of these people. And finally, every bed is filled except for the one that nobody wanted to go into, the scribe's house. So Anya ties her hair up in a bandana and grabs her sturdiest cane. She always walks with one for now. And Jabari wraps a bright-colored fabric around his neck bandage. This is all the fashion now. Everyone's doing that and putting bright fabric on their feet instead of shoes, even people who were never married. And he ties his locks up into a man bun, and they go to the scribe's house, and it has been months since anyone has been inside. And the draft from the door lifts dust up into the dirty sunbeams. And Ani says, "Ugh, this is gonna take weeks." Now inside there is a small living space and then a big archway and a big study past it. And it's all lined with wooden bookshelves and like wooden panels. There's paper books, crystals, mementos, important scribe stuff. And in the center is a big table. And if you sit at the table, right in front of you, where you can't miss it, is a pair of red crystal shoes and a red crystal collar. The original, the very first. They sit on little cushioned pedestals up there on the shelf. Anya and Jabari decide this is as good a place to start as any. They reach up together, and as they lift them off of those pedestals, behind them they hear whoosh. And a wooden panel behind the desk has slid open. And inside it is lined with little shelves filled with black crystals, dated starting a couple months ago and going back and back and back centuries. It's all of the scribe's personal records, all the way to the very first one. Well, they take that crystal and they descend into it. Woom, woom, woom. They're on that bridge. Negotiations have been going on for 6 days and 6 nights between the king and the queen, not the one night and 1 day and 1 night of Appa's story. And they have been vicious. Her art, his horses, land, water, jewels, anything they can think of. They do not want this last war. But even more than that, they do not want the other one to win. Finally, at midnight on the 6th night, the midnight clock begins to toll. Dong, and the scribe, who's been sitting in a comfy chair between them, stands up. He's got a plain wooden box at his feet, and he says, Your Majesties, Dong. Great peace requires great sacrifice. Dong. In your case, one salient sacrifice would suffice, no? Dong. If I may, I have a solution to suggest. Dong. And the scribe picks up that wooden box. Dong. Oh, first one small concession the sanctum must ask. Dong. The caves, the crystal, unfettered access. Until your reigns have ended, of course. Dong. The king and queen agree. They don't know what's in that box, but they're pretty sure it will hurt them both equally. Dong. Excellent. And the scribe opened the box. Rainbows spilled out, crystalline rainbows. A symbol of your devotion to peace and to our sanction. Dong. 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 Anya and Jabari shared that crystal with everybody too. On the day of the next choosing, there was no choosing. There was no scribe. There was no red crystal. They had shipped that all down the river for the sanctum to deal with. But they gathered, they laid those boards out across the river, bright picnic blankets, potato salad. The sun got higher and higher and started to light up those crystals, and they danced the spiral. But now everybody could dance or sing, or both, or neither. They could just watch if they wanted to. So a bunch of people joining in, a bunch of people watching, and they get to the end, and they're sweaty, and their voices are raspy, and the last drop of sun leaves those crystals dark. And then everyone from the outside comes in and mobs them from the outside into the sweatiest, laughingest, group hug mob you have ever seen in your life. And it's ended the same way that every group hug in the history of human history has ever ended, which is that the person in the center said, "I can't breathe!" And they peeled away, but just barely. And they sat in a big circle with a clear space in the middle, with that river rushing under it. And Appa came forward. And Appa took a moment to look around the circle at every single person. And then they reached in their pocket and pulled out a black crystal. Woom, woom, woom. Can we start a new chapter? Please. The floor is open. And an older woman in a wheelchair with her feet in bandages rolled herself forward. I'll start. If I had known what I know now, I would never have married my husband. He died so young. I would not have made that choice. Now, Ellen, do you remember Ellen, potato salad girl? She's grown up now. She's got a baby on her hip. She says, "Hi everyone, I'm Ellen. I'm a singer. I was a singer. I don't know, what do we say anymore?" Well, look, I'm proud of it. I'm really good at that. But dancing always made me so happy. I always wanted to dance in the spiral, and today I got to. So maybe I'm not so sad about how everything turned out, you know? I'm sad, this whole thing, it all super sucks. But okay, what I'm trying to say is maybe there's some good for us on the other side. This is my baby, her name is Ari. Thank you. Anya's daddy comes forward into the circle, and he finds Anya's eyes, those veins of brass and emeralds. And he says, I love, love, love you. It was the first time Anya heard him speak those words. Now, this went on all day. Anyone who wanted could come forward into the circle. They shared stories, songs, soft truths, small things that mattered. And it was all recorded in their voices. And this became their tradition. It was theirs. It was beautiful. And it finally was true.